Hi everyone, how you doing? So tonight I thought I'd do this podcast or video, depending what platform you're watching on, all about improving the resilience of your anxious or reactive dog. Because this was something that, to be honest, until I really got a handle on, I didn't make improvements with Inca. And once I'd got a handle on it, the improvements really just came. And obviously I used essential oils to support that, and it really worked a treat. So I'm going to explain a bit more about that. So I'm Dr. Helen. I'm an A&E doctor and advocate for integrative wellness, as well as an animal aromatherapy specialist. And I love to use essential oils to support the health and well-being of myself and my pets, and helping educate people to do the same for themselves and their family, whether that's human or animal. So if you like what you're listening to, please hit the subscribe or the follow button so I can carry on creating more content, and let me know in the comments what you'd like to know about as well. So would you like to get oils into your life? Why not book in for a free chat with me, or come to one of my classes to find out how oils can support you? Or maybe if you've got oils but you don't know how to use them best for either your health or your pets, that's okay too, as I do general overviews or full consultations depending on your needs. So drop me a message and we can chat about what the best option is for you. And I've actually got a couple of events coming up. I've got the Oil Medics Summit, which is all about a basics class about using essential oils, and that's whether you're a human or an animal. We're going to be covering it both. And I'm working with my buddies, Sabrina, who's a paramedic, Jerry, who's a nutritional therapist, and Wendy, an ICU nurse. And then I've also got another event, which is essential oils to optimize the fitness of you and your dog. So if you are someone who competes in dog sports, so this is a definite class to use. So do look at the link that's going along the bottom. But if you're listening on the podcast, it's www.thehealthfuldoctor.com /WPW links or / events, and then you'll get to those events as well. So calming, we do a lot of calming with anxious or reactive dogs. And, from my point of view, I thought it was all about lots of calming, but not actually making any progress to get Inca to the point where, I wanted her to be. Because as things stood at that particular moment in time, she was just very anxious and we couldn't go for a walk in the park. So I had a calm, but I couldn't push her forward, and couldn't get her to manage the noise or anything like that. And so once I started to understand about resilience, there was a couple of things. I read an amazing book by Sally Gutteridge called let me look at my notes, Inspiring Resilience in Fearful and Reactive Dogs, which is available on Amazon. If you look at my links, actually, if you go to the links that's in at www.thehealthfuldoctor.com /WPW links, I've actually got other things I like for my dogs, and I've listed the book in there. And I really started to understand it. And obviously then I did my level 1 in my year 1 in the dog behavior course I'm doing. And so it all started to come together, and I was realizing how I could use oils to support that as well. And really, we need to work. I was talking a lot about this in my Calm Your Dog for Fireworks Night challenge, which, if you haven't joined it, it's available as a replay. So do pop to my store to get that. But it's about working in the stress continuum, working in the right zone as well, to improve the resilience of our dogs. And so we need to work up the tolerable end of the stress level towards the toxic level, but not spilling over into the toxic level of stress, so that we don't push our dogs over threshold. But we need to do that in order that we can help build their confidence. Because if we just keep them at a normal stress level all the time, we never make any progress, and things just stay the same. And their actual resilience decreases because they're in their comfort zone. And it's like anything, you have to push out of your comfort zone in order to make changes. And so I was thinking a lot about this. I was going for a run and I was doing some hill sprints. Now, I could have just done my run, my little 5K route. I was at the Kersal Wetlands. It's an old racetrack. So I was doing my run. And I could just do that and poodle, and that's awesome. But I actually want to get stronger. I want to get faster. And so I have to push myself. And, whether that's doing sprints or, intervals. And I was actually doing some hill sprints. So I think I did 10, went up this hill, and then the recovery was the downhill. But I needed to push myself in order to improve my physical fitness. And it's only by pushing myself towards the higher level of that tolerable stress that I'm going to make the improvements that I want to make. And it's really crucial to do that. And it's the same if we're looking at, that's obviously an example for physical stress, because I need to maximize my cardiovascular strength in order that I can build on that and improve my 5K PB, and also improve my running up hills and things like that, and also my recovery. So that's a physical example, but obviously it's exactly the same for our emotions. Now, if I did that whole race, that whole run at a really toxic level and just literally, went for the burn the entire time, I'm going to collapse. I'm probably going to drop dead of a heart attack because I've going to over push myself. And we don't want to do that either. We don't want to be spilling over in a toxic level of stress, but we do need to work at the tolerable level and just improve where we're working in that tolerable level. And a normal level of stress would be something like getting out of bed. It might just be going for a walk. It might just be, to be honest, further up the normal level of stress towards the tolerable stress, it's that 5K run. And then improving that is those hill sprints, the intervals. And, it's, as I said, it's the same for the emotions, and it's the same when we start doing that with our dogs as well, and helping build that up. And that's the way you make those huge changes, and you're building those new neural pathways. Because if you always do what you always do, you think of a field, you get a path around a field, you continue to walk around the path around the field. Now, if you decided, well, you know what, I'm going to go diagonally across the field, but there's no path there. The first time you go across it, you're stepping on grass, and the grass is just springing up behind you again. But the more and more you create that new path, the more you get that defined path through it. But it doesn't just happen the first time you go across there. And so doing this is changing the pathways in our brain, so that we are creating new neural pathways for our dogs, and so that they can be comfortable in that new behavior. So for my blind dog Inca, she wasn't comfortable going out in the street, and I needed to create a new neural pathway where she would be comfortable going out in the street. And it takes time. And one of the things I found with the Calm the Dog for Fireworks night was, because we obviously spoke about noise desensitization a lot, and people were like, oh, I've tried these CDs, I've tried noise desensitization on Spotify and things like that. And I was like, okay, so how did you do it? How did you desensitize them to that noise? And, everyone who hadn't had success doing it told me that they'd started a couple of weeks before fireworks night, and they'd put some sounds on and it hadn't worked. And, 2 weeks before fireworks night is not long enough. Okay. And just to put this into context, it took me 8 months with Inca. 8 months. Now, I don't know if you can hear, if I'm quiet. So I live in the city centre of Manchester, so I can actually hear traffic. Okay, it's in my house. So there is a level of traffic here anyway, but I had to build her up to going. So she was very comfortable with this level of traffic noise. Okay, but I had to build her up to become closer to it and to be able to manage more sounds that come in at a regular time. And this is actually quite difficult to do with a blind dog, because obviously she's scared. But it was all about being slow, and slowly and surely. And so in order to work up, so I needed to work out what her normal stress level was and what she could cope with, and then gradually increase it into the tolerable stress. And, just like pushing yourself really with that exercise as well. And it was literally 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day. It was started off just walking around the car park where I live, and then we'd go through the door. And I supported her using essential oils. For her, it was cardamom. I've spoken about cardamom a lot. That was the one that worked for her. It was the one that supported her emotions with what she needs. But, we went through some different things. When she had an MR scan, the oil that supported her then was actually rose. So it does really vary. And it will vary from dog to dog, how you do it, and how, how long it takes you as well. So, if you're doing noise desensitization, you may need to start at 10 seconds. Maybe they'll only cope with 5 seconds of noise, and you're going to have it on the lowest volume. And if the lowest volume is too loud, then you take your dog further away from the stereo, and then you're going to move them further. And that's exactly what I did with Inca. Working with the noise, we worked within, we also had metal gates to contend with, so she doesn't like metal. So I used to put oil on the metal gates to build up her positive association with that and build up her resilience. And rose oil would go on the metal gates because she liked rose oil, and then she'd start smelling the rose oil. And she'd start building up her resilience to that. So she doesn't like the smell of metal, and she doesn't like the clang. So she started to get desensitized to the smell of the metal, so she could cope with the smell. And then we'd just sit there and we'd just cuddle, and I'd open and close the gate with my my little thingy, and it would clang. And then sometimes we'd sit there and a car would come through, and we'd just sit there, we'd cuddle, because she wasn't having treats at this point. She wasn't having treats. And if she wanted to go, we went. But we'd got to the point that she was really comfortable just sitting there and just being still. And it's all about doing this and building up little steps. And when you increase one variable, you always need to decrease others. So you're going to be working really with duration, so how long you're exposing your dog to it, the distraction, what are you using to distract. For Inca, it was actually aroma. We used scent. You're going to be using the location. So again, I was changing how close she got to the traffic, whether we were inside the gates or outside the gates, what side of the road we were on, and then also the distance to the noise as well. So were we further away? Obviously, as we approached the distance to as the traffic was getting louder, we'd spend less time there. And it's the same when we had to build up to go into the park. So the whole thing was this, so that I could walk her to the park. And the park had its own noises. The park has basketball players. The park has skateboarders. The park has the Mancunian Way around the top of it with sirens and things. And I've now created a pretty bomb-proof dog. We can be in the park with basketball players, skateboarders, and sirens, and she's just rolling around on the grass having a good time. But it's because I've really built that foundation of really solid, a really solid basis, really. And it literally was just 5 minutes a day, and then I broke it up into 2. I did 5 minutes a day with being out in the street, and then we also did different, I would drive to the park and then slowly bring those 2 things together. But it was really short periods of time, and I'd take her back to the point at which she could cope. And sometimes she'd be fine, and then we'd be in the street and she'd be doing really well, and then a bus would go past, and it would be like, and she sits down and she lifts her paw, and that's, I've had enough now. And I wouldn't just take her home. I would comfort her and see how we do, and we'd see if we could just sit it out for a couple of minutes and move on. Sometimes we had to move back, but I didn't just go, okay, you're scared, we'll go, because every time we'd done that in the past, we didn't get any further. And she was comforted with me. Once she had me comforting there, she was all right. So I wasn't pushing her into a toxic stress, but I was just helping her feel secure in that space as well. And then we would either go home or we'd continue our walk and just go. And sometimes it's a bit of backwards and forwards, but it really, really makes a difference. And essential oils were really crucial for doing that. So just takes your time. And when I found that where this hasn't worked for people, certainly with the noise desensitization, it's purely because people are expecting it to happen too quickly, and it took me 8 months. And that's probably it may be longer than some dogs need, it may be a shorter time than some dogs need. It is hard with traffic and blind dogs. If you have got a blind dog, it is hard to do because it's so unpredictable, and especially when a dog that hasn't got a visual, I suppose, frame of reference for it as well, it's going to be harder because they can't compute that. They haven't got what that means, like a path, a pavement. And I was thinking about it, and walking along the street, they haven't got a visual representation of that. It's just sound, and they can't maybe put it into any kind of context. But it does work, and just, you know, very, very small periods of time. Often it's the compound effect with this. So I hope that's been helpful. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any questions. Do hit follow and subscribe to my channel, and I'd love it if you'd leave me a review. That would be really great. But do drop your comments. Let me know if you want to explore this in more detail, because it's something I'm really fascinated about. Inka has fascinated me with so many things that she's doing, so much progress that we're making as well with her. I've got more things I'm going to be talking to you about using scent to support dogs as well, because it's just great. Inka's just a great teacher for me as well, and for others, because being blind, she's really making me explore different ways to support anxious and reactive dogs. So let me know how you get on. As always, I'd love to hear your comments, and as I said, anything you would like to have covered. So stay safe, everyone. Stay well. Bye.